Guys, this is the last one, okay? Try to pull through with me here. I just noticed that in the big room, do you notice they're talking a lot about some very consistent things about value chains, about how Australia actually finds, we've got these high cost environments. How do we actually find value? And the other thing that I noticed, the other thing coming out is disruption. We're talking about disruption. So I'm hoping that my presentation actually ties in with that. That if I can just find a bit of technology going, not in this one. Escape, thank you. Okay, escape again.
No, go back.
Go back. Okay, that way. Go again. No. Forward. There we go. I exist. Okay. So the name of my title is actually it's about the sheep meat supply chain. I've got a real problem. I actually really love sheep. I'm actually really passionate about our industry, and I think we've got an incredible future. So I'm really looking at one thing very specific that's happening right now, about whether a technological disruption that's going to happen in Victoria very soon is actually a bit of a game changer for our industry. It's because often we talk about going to value chains, but it's very hard when our culture and our beliefs, not belief system, but the way that we operate is already predefined. Okay, just a most important part probably is a couple of thank yous. I've had a great investor, MLA, Meat Livestock Australia. Special thanks to Jax Baptista, Dr. Jane Weatherly, and Chris Miriams. Most importantly, my wife and family. The talk we had this morning, that motivational dude, I think his name was Daniel, or Damien. Dennis, see, don't listen that well. But he actually said something really good, I thought. He said, "Are you happy?" And after doing the Nuffield, I come back and I look at that photo of that big tree, and I look at my beautiful wife and the boys, and I think actually I am. I think that's what I've got out of Nuffield. If I can help try to drive our industry forward, I'll be excited as well. Okay, so you need a bit of background, okay? I run a mixed livestock business, and we've really transitioned it. We've gone from a wool focus to a meat focus. And I used to work in wool processing. I came down farming 15 years ago, and I was kind of pumped. I was like, okay, I know from processing that if I can get my tensile strength right and my micron and my vegetable matter, I'm going to get premiums. I'm going to be able to do okay. But what I learnt was we had a way to measure things on farm. And I actually learnt that our environment can't give us the wool production that I believed where the premiums were. And there was another reason why we got out, and I'm not trying to be negative, but I was genuinely disenfranchised with the leadership within our own industry. We were being attacked about an issue called mulesing, and I think our industry could have taken the biggest threat it's ever experienced and turned it into its massive opportunity, because wool is a beautiful natural product. It's free range, it ticks so many boxes, and the one box we get to at the end we just go, no, we're not going to do anything about that because we're right and you're wrong. And you can't tell a consumer that. Okay, all right, so we've made this kind of move over, and next slide shows that why am I talking about the sheep meat industry? Because it's actually a really good news story. Why would I talk about disruption? Because over the last 14 years, you'll see on that graph on the left-hand side, that orange line shows how profitable lamb really is. I run a mixed livestock business with sheep and cattle and cropping, and effectively our prices have doubled. And it's been a very rare situation where while our prices have been going up, our production's gone up as well. Normally in agriculture, as soon as prices go up, we as farmers are very smart and we make sure prices go down by oversupplying. We might have been quite fortunate in that we've had some very good investment from our, I hate to say MLA, I'm not trying to blow wind up them, but we made some very good investments as an industry in building that consumer demand. So in terms of an evolutionary process, our industry has progressed really well. And we've actually overtaken the Kiwis. Everyone tends to think of lamb and they go, New Zealand. But we're actually ahead, and their long-term path of production, you'll see in that green dotted line in the middle one, has actually been deteriorating, whereas our production actually has gone up long-term. They do have a whole range of other factors to contend with. They've got the dairy industry, their land prices are effectively double ours. They only have quite restricted markets. They don't have a finishing system. There are a whole range of things that make it different. And I just, as a side point, our industry should be, instead of viewing the Kiwis as a competitor, we're actually collaborators if we view ourselves properly. But I do go a bit tangential, okay? So if I'm getting off track, someone just do that for me. Okay. All right, so we've got this good news story about our industry. So why on earth would I want to go and study about it? Why am I saying we need a disruption? We need something to change it. And I come back to me as a wool producer, I needed signals about quality to understand whether I'd be doing the right thing. So the fundamental problem, and you don't like to be aggressive or attackive, and our industry has evolved the way it should have, okay? And this is now the next step for us. So our fundamental problem is this, that we have a price discovery model that it's a just-in-time system, okay? And it averages all of our prices in Australia, and that was one of the clear things I learnt when travelling compared to other like industries. We have a huge focus on sale yards creating our price. And that's, there's a range of issues tied up in that, but I'll just go to another slide. This probably highlights it. That you see that red arrow on the right-hand side where we've got total production of animals that go through the sale yard to get slaughtered. That's 66% of our animals that could just go direct, go through a sale yard. And I'll try to explain it. It's very rational behaviour for both sides of the equation. For Australia, we're very fortunate that we've got a multitude of markets that as a producer, if the season goes the wrong way, I can get out of an animal and someone else will buy it. It's as much about competition for price. That's what we're ingrained about competition. And we hear these concepts of as I talked about before, about value chains. I had one academic, he said to me, look, I can't believe you guys are still using sale yards. And he defined it as a form of public one-night stands. And it really is, in a way, that the producer does this, processor takes that, no one knows. But it's nearly impossible when you think about it. There's 23,000 Australian sheep meat producers. We can't all do like what James can, where they can build relationships in the chain. And also a lot of farmers can actually take the risk because on average, 20 to 30% of the income actually comes from sheep meat and lamb. They can say, well, I can put it into that system and that's fine. I might suffer some price variability, but I can afford to take that risk. And you've got to think, imagine if you're a processor. What's their biggest risk of all? It's waking up one day and say, I've got no sheep to put through my processing plant. So a sale yard system, although they know it's a little bit compromised, the animal gets stressed, you add additional cost, they say, well, it's compromised, but I get what I need. But think about their behaviour. What they have to do is they've actually got to make sure that their competitor can't get cheap animals that way. Because the sheep meat supply chain is very much just in time, it's hand to mouth. So the problem for a sale yard is or for a processor is their inability to form long-term relationships in the chain means they have to kind of keep going back to this method. So I go, well, there are these issues. What's the alternative? That's my key issue in my head. And there is an alternative, but whether we get there, that's the challenge. Okay, so how do we move to a cuts-based marketing system that actually pays on what we're calling saleable meat yield and eating quality? The sheep on the left there, say you buy 2 sheep from the sale yards. Right now, a buyer will come in and pay for a live weight animal. That animal's just sitting there, pay $100, okay? Then they go through processing plant, and we've got different value kind of metrics. When farmers talk about an animal, you've got what's called dressed weight, where you've taken the skin out and all the yucky, awful stuff. And then you've really got what we actually should all be after is the actual saleable meat yield, the red stuff that we actually want. What I think the logic should be, our industry should set all of its key price at that point, okay? That if we can get as close to the consumer value creation point, it would drive all the signals the right way. That's the goal. And I'm thinking probably selfishly, as a farmer, I know that I behave, if I get money in my pocket, that instigates me to innovate more on farm. And we have now methods on farm we can link everything together. Okay, my wife's doing this to me, so I'm going tangential. Okay. Now, this is part of the kind of cultural thing that I talk about, that we've got this culture of distrust. Okay, we all hate each other. I don't know why, but actually I do, because we think that they're trying to, take money from our part of the pie. So one of my key thoughts to it is, as an industry, perhaps we shouldn't be investing in the measurement at the processing point. Could we make it mobile? Okay, could we effectively take a sale yard, instead of having a physical sale yard where you become a captive market, you bring that animal in and you rarely take it back out because of disease and welfare. Could you measure something on farm? Could you get a metric, and then you basically virtualise the price discovery mechanism, and effectively that would be, what I call bar bay, not eBay. Our industry has actually got it, and we developed it before the internet. The sheep meat producers were actually really smart. The problem was, it was before its time, and it had to be sold off. It was known as CALM, computer aided livestock marketing, and a lot of processors. I go to them, I say, well, why don't you just source everything through CALM or Auctions Plus? And it's all about the assessment. They go, how can I be sure I'm going to get what I think? Whereas if they have a buyer in a sale yard, they can have assurance that they can guesstimate it. So there's some things there that we could potentially change. Also, we could think about a new model for our agents. 90% of our sales have a third-party agent involved. And whether they are the ones in the sale yards for that, how I talked about the one-night stand theory, whether they're helping that or not, I don't know. Okay. All right, so the value proposition. This is the real challenge. That we as an industry have to actually say, that there is value in doing this, okay? And for me, it comes back to I can measure for success. There are ways now on farm to actually link every lamb to every ewe. Okay, I can link all of my genetics together. And if I can do it through price, then I get incentivised. And the other one is that we might miss about talking about saleable meat yield. The key is actually the consumer. So, no, I've forgotten that bit. Okay, we go back a little bit. Processing efficiency. That basically, if we can align our goals with the processor, okay, and their problem is they are now the biggest employer of labour in Australia. High labour cost environment, they want to get their efficiency up. So if we can go back to that saleable meat yield, you can see there, if you have two different animals that normally in a sale yard are averaged, they can actually increase their processing efficiency by 15%, but their value increase can go up by 25% as well. So it's about finding a mechanism that can give us the right signals and distribute that value. Because right now, all they will do is go, yep, I'll take that. And that's perfectly rational behaviour. We shouldn't, as farmers, we go, oh, they're just all bastards. But they're not at all. They're really rational. And we've been very fortunate having very good exporters. This is a producer saying, we are lucky. I think we are. Okay, keep going. So it's that value creation ability, about aligning goals. One other thing you really notice about Australia is we don't have many brands. There's a real, you compare to the UK, the New Zealand branded product, and one of the things that drives that is part of the QA programs have this compliance that you have to have the animal on farm for 60 days. I saw overseas in Wales and Ireland a lot of provenance stories linking, right back. You'd actually have the photo of the producer on the actual on the package. We just don't have that in Australia, and I think this is my own personal viewpoint. It's that sale yard problem. Okay. So talk about the enablers of change. Industry's been trying to do this for about 20 years. Okay, that sale yard thing actually beats it every time. So what we need is what I call the Holy Grail. We actually need some really good objective carcass measurements. That's critical. And as an industry, we actually did 25 years ago develop what was called Viascan. And it was funny, I was over in New Zealand, there I was seeing this technology working all these New Zealand plants, yet in Australia we have two of them, yet they turn them off. And again, New Zealand's got some different circumstances because they've got more cooperatives, they've got different structures to what we have. But the intention of things like CALM, things like Viascan were really good for industry. Industry actually had the right goals, but we've never been able to beat the variability that Mother Nature gives us in the way that we've been marketing our animals. Okay, so this is, to me, the big one that's about to change everything, I believe. It's all about what I call the game changer, electronic identification devices. And if you're in Victoria and you're sheep meat producers, right now you would have all gone get stuffed. Like our farming lobby right now is our national body is opposed to it, and there's general antagonism that it doesn't make sense. But the debate is all about traceability. Basically, the Victorian government is saying that, well, we can't achieve the traceability agreements with the current visual mob-based system. So they're going to move industry from 1st of January next year, every sheep will have to have an electronic identification device. There they are on the right there. It's all about risk mitigation. But I personally think the really positive outcome is it now provides a key tool to link what that process is doing, the value creation, with what we're doing on farm. This is about how the chain can actually work together, but in an environment and a culture that has been very distrustful. So we're still using open outcry, just we're finding a way to value it better. And it might be the first step in an evolution towards getting to exactly what James was talking about, actual relationships, actual value in the chain together. So just one side example. In the UK, I saw a lot of, we talk about disruption. I saw after the foot and mouth disease that a lot of collection centres started to open up for the sheep meat industry, that they were having to then be grouped together and work together. So occasionally, when there's a disruption, something comes out of it. And I'd argue this EID thing, a lot of people, it's about the traceability, it's going to add cost to us. I'm saying, well, it actually might be the tool to get the chain to actually work together. All right. Now this might be a little bit confusing, saying culture eats strategy for breakfast. And the real challenge is this that if we say, let's go and invest in something where normally they've been the ones that we've been very distrustful for, we actually as a farmer lobby group have to be pushing it. It's not the processors. We, the producers, have to be saying that this makes a lot of sense, that there is an ability to actually create more value, to create the right signals for our industry. And the other point that I'd make is don't give away the agenda to vested interests. There are people, bodies and parties within our current chain who obviously have their own business model and they naturally think that that's the way we should operate. The challenge for farmers is we can be quite disconnected and we can be taken down a path that is not necessarily good for us. It could be good for that vested interest that would push their own barrow. And processors actually aren't the enemy. As farmers, we often think they are. All right, that's it. Look, thank you very much for listening to what I'd call a naive optimist, and I think EID is a game changer. Thank you.